Morning, everybody. I'm going to ask you all to rise, and Councillor McFadden is going to recite the prayer.
Grant us, O Lord, perception and patience, that justice, truth, and honesty may be evident on our planning and governing. Make us aware of the needs of each part of this, regional municipality. Save us from a parochialism that divides, and so create in us a desire for progress and responsible action. We pray that all our words and deeds may be in accord with thy will, to the glory of thy holy name. Amen.
Amen. Roll call. All members of council are present except Mayor Fennell is ill. Foley's ill. Mayor Fennell is absent then. Councillor Unique, Councillor Fonseca is also absent. Councillor Unique is absent. Councillor Mahoney's away in personal matters. Councillor Miles is absent. Mayor McCallion's also absent. I believe that all other members are present.
This side of the room's full.
Yeah, they're always facing the sun in the morning, so they're up. Approval of the minutes. I have a motion then by Crombie and Carlson that the minutes of the Regional Council meeting held on March 27, 2014 be approved. Are there any errors or omissions? If not, all those in favor? Anybody voting? All those in favor? Carried. I have a motion then by Dale and Haynes that the agenda for April the 10th, 2014 Regional Council be approved, and I have a couple amendments. That the item relating to human services being 10.1 on the agenda be brought forward immediately following the delegations, and that Dr. Mowat provide an update on the measles as item 9.2.2. Are there any other questions? If not, all those in favor as amended? Carried. Our maybe then before I go to delegations, I know that today is the new day for some of the changes that the clerks have been making towards the way that you're going to deal with the agenda. I think this would be an opportunity if there are any questions in regards to the new agenda, or if you need any better understanding of the way the system's going to work. And
We want color back.
Catherine is prepared to talk to anybody after the meeting if you want to make some suggestions. I think there are some councillors that have some thoughts in that. Moving on then to delegations. Before I ask Shelley White to come up to say a few words, I'd like to say a few words, and also David would like to make some comments. This morning, as we are recognizing the success of our campaign of our regional employees and Peel Regional Police in raising much needed money for the United Way of Peel Region, last year's Peel Employee Campaign Committee set out to raise $325,000. Last year, Peel's also last year, our staff were very generous in giving us the surprise that they had raised over $333,000 towards United Way. Peel Regional Police also ran a successful campaign in 2013, and I'm pleased to inform you that the latest numbers from Peel Regional Police bring their 2013 total contribution to $98,732, an increase from what is currently stated in today's report to Council. Together with Peel Regional Police, we also raised close to $500,000 for the United Way. We have had a long-standing tradition of supporting United Way in the region of Peel over the last 40 years, and we are privileged to have these partnerships with our organization that is dedicated to meeting the needs of our Peel community and ensure that individuals who are affected by various social issues lead healthier lives. Our chief, Jennifer Evans, was unable or is unable to be with us today, and she sends her regrets. And but Peel Deputy Frank Roselli is here today, and maybe he would like to come forward and make a couple comments, and maybe he could introduce his guests that he has with him today. Good morning.
Morning, Chair, honorable members of Regional Council. Today I have with me Inspector Dale Mumby from Peel Regional Police, who's the officer in charge of our emergency services, and Constable Jennifer Goosey. Dale was one of the co-chairs for the Peel Regional Police United Way campaign this past year, and Constable Goosey was our lone rep to the United Way during the past campaign. I've been a member of Peel Regional Police for 34 years now, and United Way has been in existence within the Peel Regional Police for as long as I can remember. It's a campaign that's near and dear to us in the policing world because it does so much in the community, which assists the police in doing their job. The difference it makes in the community with respect to issues such as poverty, mental health, and childcare just adds to the feeling in the community that we work together. And our officers are so generous, and this is part of what we expect from our officers in terms of their community service and the contribution that they can make to the community. Now, our Lone Rep program has been running for at least the past 10 years, and it also adds to our policing in that it gives an opportunity to our officers to learn the other side of the business. That is, how things work in the corporate world and adds to their leadership skills. So we're so grateful to be involved in the Lone Rep program, and we'll continue to do so. I'm going to apologize for the way I look today. Usually my hair is a little shorter, but we're just gearing up for the next big campaign, which is Cops for Cancer. And so the next time you see me, Chair, I'm actually going to have a lot shorter hair. But on behalf of Peel Regional Police and Chief Evans, I'd like to thank United Way for giving us the opportunity to participate, and I pledge that we will continue to contribute and participate in such a worthy cause. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Maybe if you just, just go back to the road there.
Yep.
And find it, and I'll ask you to come up later for a picture. I'm now going to turn it over to David and let him speak on behalf of our staff and our campaign at the Region of Peel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you mentioned, once again this year, regional employees from every department in every role, be they represented by a union or non-union, management or frontline, have voluntarily raised $333,901. And they do that, as the Deputy Chief has said, to help those who are in need in our community and who live and work here in Peel. Together with the police, our partners in the police, we've raised a total of $432,683 this year for the United Way. So, from my perspective, Mr. Chairman and members of Council, staff the employees of the Regional of Peel on a daily basis do really a phenomenal job of providing exceptional and exemplary public service. But on their own, they have also given back. And over the last 10 years, it now exceeds $4.5 million that the employees of the Region of Peel and Peel Regional Police have given back to the community to support those people in our community through the United Way. I want to recognize the very shy but very capable chair of the past year's campaign, Sherry Watkins. Where are you hiding? Stand up. Don't be shy. You did a phenomenal job this year. And also Jovita Sharansky and Minu Sikand, who were the vice chairs. I don't know if they're here. Yes, they are. And they will be leading next year's campaign for us. So personally, in front of council and the public, I'd like to thank the three of you very much for the work you've done in this leading this campaign this year. It was a phenomenal achievement. And we are a community, the Region of Peel and the communities within Peel are a community, I believe, in which people care about one another. And the contributions by regional staff, which are completely voluntary and not matched by the employer, shows their commitment of being part of that caring community. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, David. And I'm going to ask Shelley White, the President and CEO of the United Way of the Region of Peel, to come forward and say a few words.
Good morning, Chair Kolb, Deputy Roselli, Mayor Morrison, Mayor McCallion, esteemed members of council. Many thanks to David Swark and to Dan Lebrec, our executive lead for the 2013 campaign, and of course to Sherry Watkins, the chair of this year's campaign, and to her sidekick, Harriet McLaughlin, who Sherry says she could have never done this without her, and their entire team of staff who volunteered their time so generously to create such a successful United Way campaign, and to leadership chairs Steve Hall and Sue Ritchie, and of course from Peel Regional Police, Constable Jennifer Goose, Inspector Dale Mumby, and Carrie Lynn Holmes, who provided extraordinary leadership to the Peel Regional Police campaign. We commend all members of council, the committee members, and all employees with the Region of Peel and Peel Regional Police for their tremendous leadership and dedication to the United Way. You've worked tirelessly to support our common goals of creating a livable community that supports everyone and creates everyone with the opportunity to have a successful life. And we are very, very appreciative of the over $432,000 that you raised for this community through your combined efforts. And do you know that since 1998, the Region of Peel has actually raised over $5.76 million for our community, which is extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. And in fact, the Region of Peel and Peel Regional Police are one of our top contributing United Way partners. You have a rich legacy of supporting our community, and 2013 was no different. You have brought management and labor members from across your organization together to fundraise for the United Way. You filled in your pledge forms. You had extraordinary events, including the golf tournament and the 5K walk, run, and roll, which was an extraordinary event. I was amazed at how many people were out to walk, run, and roll on that cold, rainy day. But that rain did not dampen their spirits, and there was extraordinary participation, and it was an extremely well-organized event. So many thanks to Sherry and to Harriet and to the entire committee who made that happen, and to the extraordinary kickoffs that you had at Peel Regional Police and at the Region of Peel. You know, there is this tremendous affinity in both organizations to music. And both events had members of their staff as in bands playing extraordinary music and really motivating and inspiring people to come together in a common cause to improve people's lives and build a stronger community. And United Way of Peel Region has an overall commitment to eliminate poverty in our community. Far too many people in our community are unnecessarily living in poverty. And we want to create pathways out of poverty for individuals, but we also want to prevent poverty in our community and support those individuals who are living in poverty. So for that reason, we invest $1.1 million in pathways out of poverty, $2.7 million in all that kids can be to prevent poverty, and $3.4 million in building strong communities to support those individuals that are vulnerable to falling into poverty. And as a result of the $432,000 plus you've raised, over 10,600 people in our community will benefit from the tremendous support. That's outstanding. Today, there are young people who are receiving support and a safe roof over their head and receiving the nurturing that they need at Our Place Peel because of the support that you've provided. Today, individuals are receiving a healthy meal, they're receiving food, and they're learning how to cook healthy meals with the food that they receive at the Exchange in Caledon, at Knight's Table in Brampton, and at Eden Food Bank and in Malton through food security hubs as a result of the funding that you've provided. And women and children that have been victims of domestic abuse are receiving the support and care that they need at shelters to help them get back on their feet and live a life that's free of fear and that in which they're safe. And that's all because of your generosity and your kindness. And so we are immensely appreciative of what you've done at the United Way, but you know what, most importantly, the benefactors of those funds are extremely grateful for your kindness and your compassion and your humanitarian efforts. And so we'd like to thank you on behalf of all of them. And so I'd like you to turn your attention to the screen and so that you can hear from the benefactors the kind of difference that you've made in their lives. And I'm supposed to maybe do something like this. Let's see if my... Here we go.
Because of you, my family and I enjoy fresh fruit and vegetables. Thank you.
Because of you, I can understand my teenager better. Thank you. Because of you, I have access to childcare to go to work and provide for my family. Thank you.
Because of you, I have someone to talk to. Thank you.
Because of you, I have the courage to share my experience on mental illness. Thank you.
Because of you, blindness has not stolen my independence. Thank you.
Because of you, I have a positive role model in my life. Thank you.
Because of you, my children and I are safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Because of you, individuals living in Brampton, Caledon, and Mississauga have hope and opportunity for a brighter future. Thank you. And that's just a small number of individuals, and those are actually individuals who live in our community right here in Peel, who've been benefactors of those services. So thank you very, very much for being partners in this work to create a community that's livable and that improves people's lives and builds a stronger community. I couldn't have put it better, but I certainly appreciate your tremendous support. And right after this, I'm heading over to volunteer Mississauga Brampton Caledon's AGM and Volunteer Recognition Week. I think it's really wonderful that I have the opportunity to thank you actually during National Volunteer Week for your tremendous volunteer efforts. Today, Volunteer Mississauga Brampton Caledon's actually going to be recognizing Mr. Bill Gorski. And I know that you all know Bill very, very well. We know, and Bill has had a long time commitment as a volunteer to both the Region of Peel and to the United Way. And so we nominated Bill for a Lifetime Volunteer Award for the work that he's done as the chair of the Region of Peel's Accessibility Advisory Council, and also for his long-standing leadership of the United Way's Community Investment Cabinet. And so he's being honored today, and so I'm going to head over there to celebrate and to thank him for his contribution. But I think it's just a really tremendous example of how all of us working together are making a real difference in our community and in people's lives. So thank you very, very much, Region of Peel and Peel Regional Police, for being tremendous partners in our humanitarian efforts.
Thank you very much on behalf of all of the Regional Council and our community out there, and certainly to all of our employees and to all of the police that have worked so hard in the chair and with the chair and the co-chair of those committees. And I'd like them to come forward so that David and I could present the check to you. And I'd like you to come forward, and we'll do it right here, in order to present the check to you.
Thank you.
Mayor McCallion?
I just want to say that under Shelley White's leadership, the United Way has implemented programs that are so amazing and have had such a major impact on people that need assistance. Your leadership is exceptional. I want you to know that.
Well, thank you, but you all know that I don't do this alone, and in fact, I have Raj Tendengra with me today. He's the Resource Development Manager who's worked closely with the Region of Peel and Peel Regional Police. And Chair Kolb, if it'd be fine with you, I'd like to have Raj come up and be part of that check presentation, because he's done all the heavy lifting with your teams. So, thank you. Thank you very much, Mayor McCallion.
Dan, come on up too.
I hired Shelley. I did. It's the only good thing I did. Yeah. I better go on this side. It's so light. We're all dark.
Can we? Yeah, close together. Just
Taller.
Yes.
Yes.
11.10.
Okay, I would now ask that, Janet, would you like to come forward?
United Way report 11.10.
Oh, 11.10. Who would like to move 11.10, which is the United Way? Okay. Toby? Okay, all right. Are there any questions? If not, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. So then we'll move on to the presentation. And it's in your black folders. You want to follow along? You may start whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Kolb and members of Regional Council. I'm happy to have this opportunity to talk with you about the interesting and exciting transformation that is taking place in the world of human services. It has implications for both council and staff. As the report on this agenda points out, we have entered what we are calling an era of local flexibility. Major provincial changes have resulted in service system managers, like the Region of Peel, having greater ability to address local needs. As you know, Ontario municipalities face challenging economic conditions, and in some cases, such as in Peel, rapid population growth and demographic changes, all of which place greater demands on our resources. The province recognizes that local service managers can play a leading role in developing solutions to these complex circumstances. These solutions require integrated long-term planning, community partnerships, new and innovative ways of conducting business, and in some cases, difficult decisions about how services are delivered. Today, I will discuss how local flexibility has benefited the Region of Peel. I will highlight certain achievements and your role in those achievements, made possible through this flexibility and a systems approach to decision-making. I will finish by speaking to the general implications for service managers and council. So I'll just back up a little bit. In 1998, the province introduced local services realignment, which saw responsibilities related to early learning and childcare, affordable housing, and social assistance downloaded to 37 consolidated municipal service managers and 10 district social service administration boards in the north. The Region of Peel is a designated municipal service manager. The local services realignment included new funding arrangements, service delivery obligations, and service system management responsibilities. Service system management, however, was new to municipalities, and it included 4 broadly defined components: planning, relationship management with community agencies, planning bodies, other levels of government, and service users to establish local priorities and outcomes, ensuring that funds are distributed in the most effective way to achieve desired outcomes, and ensuring providers are in compliance with provincial and municipal expectations, including legislation, policies, and directives, and to ensure that programs do not exceed their budgets. And finally, determining and implementing the most appropriate delivery structures to manage the service system and provide the most value to the community. These changes represented a major shift from traditional service delivery to the management of entire systems. In many respects, it took us from a service delivery comfort zone and completely changed the management oversight dynamic for council and staff. Within the last few years, the province has implemented major changes to help service managers better fulfill our responsibility, and they've provided greater discretion at the local level. This includes the Housing Services Act, which gives greater responsibility and flexibility to us, while the province continues to provide oversight and policy direction. As you know, one key aspect of the Housing Services Act is that we are required to work with the community to develop a 10-year integrated housing and homelessness plan. And Peel's plan has now entered the implementation planning phase. And the new early learning and childcare funding formula also came into effect last year, as did the Community Homelessness Prevention Initiative, referred to as CHIPPE, which I will discuss in more detail. So this is a snapshot of the current human services system, which includes affordable housing, early learning and childcare, and social assistance. Affordable housing and childcare are shown in green boxes because the region of Peel is specifically designated by the province as a service manager for these two systems. The region, although a service provider, is not a service manager for social assistance. So let's take a closer look at these systems. We'll start with affordable housing. First, I'd like to clarify the roles of the Region of Peel and Peel Housing Corporation, or Peel Living. The Region of Peel, through Council, is the service manager for affordable housing. Peel Living, although the largest, is one of 48 providers in Peel. Peel Living is not the service manager, and its board does not oversee the service manager role. This role belongs to the region through Council. The Region of Peel is also a housing provider in its own right and owns 6 buildings. Recently, we are using new approaches that leverage community assets and allow us to do more with taxpayer dollars. As a service manager, this is our obligation, and this is a perfect example in front of you. This is Credit Vale Mills on the left, completed in January 2013. It's owned by the Region of Peel, but it's operated in partnership by Peel Living and Wisma Mega Inda, which is one of our housing providers. The total cost for this project was $53.2 million, of which the region contributed 17.3, or 32%. So our regional cost per unit was $69,140. By comparison is the Hanson Building, which is currently under construction at the corner of Queen and Hanson Road in Brampton, and it's slated for completion in January 2016. Hanson will not be owned by the region, nor operated by Peel Living, as has been common in the past. Instead, it's owned and will be operated by one of our community partners and an existing housing provider, Supportive Housing in Peel, or SHIP. The total cost is estimated at $57.2 million, and the regional contribution will be $1.5 million, or 2.7%. or $7,500 per unit. So this is a difference of $61,000 per unit compared to Credit Vale Mills. Although the region will not own this building, SHIP has committed to a 60-year affordable housing agreement. They are locked in through legal agreements. These two examples are a huge departure from even 10 or 11 years ago. And Millbrook Place, which was built in 2003 and actually funded 100% from municipal Region of Peel dollars. As financial pressures increase, we must find creative ways of addressing service needs, and in most cases, this will mean partnerships. I would also like to highlight a couple of other examples of partnerships and alternative service delivery models. The first is Norton Lake, which was completed in October 2013, located on Queen Street near West Drive in Brampton. It's a regionally owned facility. However, we've contracted Pathway Housing and Support Services to operate the building. We are reducing costs and the level of risk to the region. The second is the region's choice based renting program. This initiative, which began in March 2012, allows applicants from the centralized housing waitlist to search for their own accommodation anywhere in Peel. Applicants no longer need to rely on the social housing stock. They now have the option of receiving their rent subsidy where they currently live, or they can find accommodation and a landlord of their choice, including the private sector. So far, approximately 500 applicants are now receiving rent subsidy this way. So it obviously reduces our need to address the problem by building new stock completely. The Community Homelessness Prevention Initiative, or CHIPPE, is another wonderful example of local flexibility. Effective January 2013, this initiative streamlined into 5 separate provincial housing and homelessness programs that each had different funding allocations, policies, guidelines, and reporting requirements. We now receive block funding that permits total discretion across 4 categories. This added flexibility has already proven successful. In 2013, by altering policy, the region reduced spending and was able to reallocate $2.7 million to support eviction prevention initiatives. We have since seen a 13% reduction in the occupancy rate at Peel Family Shelter. An analysis of the reasons for this and the impact of CHIPPE will be presented to Council in the near future. But these are the kinds of things we're hoping to see as we start using local flexibility in decision-making. To childcare. The region is currently in the process of transferring childcare operations at 11 locations to nonprofit childcare providers, Family Day, PLASP, and the YMCA. The decision to withdraw from the direct delivery of childcare was a bold and difficult one, led by the Early Learning and Childcare Task Force. This decision, however, strengthened the region's role as a service manager, and it redirected $12.7 million to address broader system priorities, such as fee subsidies, supports for children with special needs, and helping child care providers retrofit to serve younger age groups. And as you'll recall, this was a big gap in Peel's system. Thus far, 7 of the 11 locations have been successfully transferred, and 1 more is taking place this weekend. All the transfers will be complete by June 30th of this year. In December 2012, the Ministry of Education announced a new funding formula and framework for early learning and childcare that recognizes population growth and local conditions. Including our regional contributions, Council is now managing investment in early learning and childcare totaling over $117 million. As service manager, we have flexibility to spend within and across 3 broad funding categories. The withdrawal from the direct delivery of childcare and the new funding formula and framework have led to positive outcomes. We have stabilized the early learning and childcare system amid the transition of over 32,000 4- and 5-year-olds in Peel to full-day kindergarten, and that'll be complete this September. As well, the fee subsidy waitlist for Peel was eliminated in June 2013, as compared to over 3,000 families on the waitlist at the end of 2012. Today, we provide just-in-time subsidy. And finally, a new service delivery model for special needs resourcing has been developed and is being implemented to allow more families easy access to support and funding. This new model, called Peel Inclusion Resource Services, or PERS, was achieved through collaboration between the Region of Peel and 5 special needs resourcing agencies. This was a council priority, and is a wonderful example of what can be accomplished when the community comes together and services are integrated. Being a service manager does not mean we have to directly provide services. However, it does mean we have to make sure certain services are provided. As such, we are relying heavily on community-based organizations such as Peel Children and Youth, Child Development Resource Connection Peel, and the Peel Inclusion Resource Services to play a key role in ensuring that Peel's children and families have the best possible outcomes. And at the same time, we're building the capacity of our community. Lastly, I'd like to discuss social assistance and employment services. Although social assistance has not experienced changes to the same degree as early learning and housing, it does offer a degree of flexibility. We're able to use administration funding for social assistance clients as deemed necessary, provided we match provincial funding. And we have discretion to either purchase or directly provide employment services. The province has not designated service managers for social assistance and employment services as of yet. Following recommendations from Don Drummond, the Ministry of Training Colleges and Universities has undertaken a review that will likely result in system change in this area in the near future. Changes will include a common assessment, greater Employment Ontario support for complex cases, and a deeper focus on understanding the needs of local employers. And we should be hearing more about these changes over the next 18 months. In addition, a recent review that we conducted on Peel's employment services also highlights the need for more coordination and improved alignment of resources, and you will hear more about that. So what does this new era of local flexibility mean for service managers and for the region of Peel? Well, it means a higher level of accountability. We are no longer just following provincial rules. Service managers in many cases are required to establish their own rules. We must establish local policies and take ownership for the outcomes. And we're learning that the best outcomes are achieved in partnership with the community. We must develop the right staff competencies. Moving from service delivery to effective management of entire systems requires the right skills. This includes planning, policy development, financial and policy analysis, consultation and facilitation, program evaluation, community development, process improvement, contract management, and on. To do this, we're shifting our resources internally. It means engaging the community. As we have seen, our external partners are willing and prepared to collaborate with us. Working together, we can achieve more than we ever could on our own. And involving the community up front ensures that local policies reflect community needs. It also requires improved integration. Well-coordinated programs and services lead to better outcomes and service experience for our residents. They also reduce duplication and build capacity within the system. And finally, it means greater potential for our community. The added flexibility allows Peel and Council to be more responsive. As local priorities change, we can act accordingly and maximize resources where they are needed most. To conclude, this diagram represents how we, Council and staff, are working together to fulfill our role. It starts with organizational capacity, which includes strengthening our enabling services and competencies and cultivating a strong and effective business culture. As we do so, we're better positioned to engage the community, to strengthen our partnerships and collaboratives, and empower independence, thereby building both community and individual capacity. The region of Peel has already made remarkable progress in service system management under the leadership of this council. Management is ensuring we have the right skills and that our department is structured for success in the long term. We are grateful for what we've been able to achieve thus far and look forward to working with you to capitalize on the opportunities that lie ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Janet, I have some questions. Councillor Sado.
Thank you, and thank you, oops, sorry, I'm humming, for an excellent report. That's lots of great information, and some of the statistics I think are very good for us to see how we have been moving away from just handing out, whether it's subsidies or monthly checks, to doing a lot more to actually helping people. And we've always said we're not giving a hand out, we're giving a hand up. And I think this really exemplifies that perfectly. On the last page, sorry, slide 17, it was the one previous to this, I think. No, one before that. Right. We are dealing right now at the Economic Advisory Board at the City of Mississauga. We're having a special session coming up this month on employment and what we can do, what employers can do, what the city can do to try to make more employment opportunities, particularly for young people, for students coming out of school. And part of it is, you know, we're looking at boosting the economy, keeping our economy strong. But a good part of that, I think, really lends itself to the social services programs of preventing poverty, because we want to stop it, make sure that our young people are well equipped so that they can get jobs and provide those opportunities, and in some cases breaking that cycle of poverty that some of them may be in. Where would you, thank you, where would you see the region of Peel fitting into that type of, I mean, I don't know where it's going to lead us when we have our session. We had a very short discussion at our last board meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I suggested that we have a special session just on that particular issue of youth employment. And I really, you know, listening to you today, I really see a role for the region of Peel in that side of the economic development, in the employment side. Where would you see the flexibility that we have fitting into that type of a program, working with, you know, our board has the Board of Trade, we have representatives from various businesses within the City of Mississauga.
Thank you. It's a great question, and actually, Mayor McCallion already alerted me to the fact that these discussions were happening. I think this is a perfect role for us to play. As we look at the broader employment system in the region of Peel, all the municipalities will need to fit into it, along with the service providers. When we report back on the system, you'll be surprised. There are 79 agencies currently providing employment services in the region of Peel at over 50 locations. And with those numbers, we just know that we can do a better job. So we will be doing some work with those organizations. And we'll also be following the lead of the province. The province, as I said, is looking at integrating the entire system. They have a mandate to do so, and we'll be working in concert with them to work locally on any changes that they recommend. But our employment services team definitely can play a role, and we have an ability, as I said, to shift resources within that portfolio to meet local needs, and this is a perfect example of same.
Well, that's good, because hopefully you are, some of your staff, or you and some of your staff will be attending that session, because I think it is a great opportunity for us to expand the municipal side of the service provision. And you know, I'm surprised. I didn't realize there were 79 agencies that were providing employment services. That's quite a statistic. So, and that's really what we discussed at our meeting of the Economic Advisory Board, that people really don't know where to go. And I guess with 79 agencies, which one would you go to? So we're looking at having not really just a one-stop shopping, but one place where people looking for employment, you know, I guess not just youth, although we're focusing on youth, can actually get that information as to where they can go. And that's what we found was lacking. So I'm really looking forward to that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. A very excellent report. I think we have to issue a lot of thanks to AMO. They've been working, and Janet has been involved in that. We've been working on this for a while, and many reports came to the MOU, encouraging the province to give us the flexibility rather than just following the rules and the regulations and checking up on that. So I think we have to express our appreciation to the province in moving in this direction as a result of the Drummond report, no question about it. He certainly emphasized that there's a better way to deliver the many services that we deliver. So I think it's exciting to see how you, the staff at the region, has implemented it and is well on their way to implementation. I think a lot of money can be saved, well, millions can be saved through the program throughout the province, because we're only one part. Think of the City of Toronto with this flexibility, et cetera. So it's a major step forward that I don't think the province gets credit for, really. I don't think they realize that this is we would not have the flexibility unless the province granted us to be able to do it. And AMO has played a major role in that, I have to tell you, the Task Force on Social, which you've been a part of in many ways. Secondly, as Councillor Sato has said, I asked our economic development, Susan Amring, to look at the agencies in the city of Mississauga. I don't know what the number is, 79 in the region, I guess it's 79 in the region. Far too many, trying to do a job, no coordination, no working together, strictly out there, and the young people don't know who to call, especially the young people we were dealing with. They have no idea who to call. So I'm hoping that this session, I don't know, I think the date has been set sometime in May for the Economic Advisory Board to deal with this, and I've invited Janet to be there with her staff to participate in it, because you are dealing with those that are unemployed. And so it's an excellent process for us. So I'm looking forward, because quite honestly, the unemployment of youth in Mississauga, and I'm sure it's in Brampton, is high, extremely high. And if there's nothing else we do, I think we have to make sure that we've done everything we can to put more young people to work. I think the opportunities are there, and the private sector has got to get involved in a major way. So I think it's going to be a real success story. As to how far we can progress, that will determine on the private sector cooperating with us, because there's where the employment is. It's out in the private sector. So I think that our Economic Advisory Board has taken that leadership is extremely important. And thank you, Janet, for the major contribution that you've made.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, thank you very much, Janet, for it's an excellent report, and obviously the statistics and the numbers in all of the different areas show that having the flexibility, but also the accountability and being able to work within the system, you're providing many more services. I just wanted to highlight page 11 on the alternative service delivery model under choice-based renting program. I really feel that this program, as an alternative service delivery, there will help eliminate some of the gap that's in the housing spectrum, and I think it's an extremely important solution, because it will not only look at the public sector but also the private sector. So there's increasing capacity, but there's also working with what rental units are there currently, so people don't have to leave the homes that they are currently in, whether it's in the private sector or the public sector. And I was wondering when we will have an update on this on choice-based renting program. Will we be getting an update on that in terms of numbers as part of the you mentioned a report will come back on Community Homelessness Prevention Initiative?
On the Chippy, Yeah, I'm not sure that that would be part of it. Just let me check with staff. Have any service manager? Yes, we're planning a housing service manager report by September, back to council.
Okay.
So normally we report on little components like the status of the wait list, et cetera. We're rolling it all into one report this year.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to congratulate you on a really excellent report, and I agree with Madam Mayor. I was going to make actually the same point. You know, a lot of times we criticize the province and the federal government. Well, here's a time when they actually got something right, and it kind of releases our creativity to be able to shift things around and do things differently. We just had a terrific charrette on the Bingmont Beach property last Saturday. We had 30 residents out, some people that lived in some of our housing units, some people from the development community, and there was great interest and great excitement about developing a different type of a partnership. So, you know, I think it's something we may not have been able to do a few years ago. So I think that's really terrific. I just sort of had one question. When I was in London, a lot of the social housing providers, just to speak to the employment, youth employment for a moment, had they had social enterprise things set up, cafes, and they had a painting company. Some of them they experimented with didn't quite work that well, but they did have several that were very successful. So does this model allow us to engage in helping out in those types of situations as well?
Absolutely, yes, it does.
Yeah, that's terrific. That's great. Well, that could be a tiny little piece of the puzzle as far as the employment and breaking the cycle. But
thank you, and we are looking at the rest of the world and what the types of things that they're doing that are innovative.
Absolutely. Yeah, okay, thank you very much, and thanks to staff, do a great job.
Councilor Palashi?
Yeah, thanks. Janet, I want to thank you also. It is an excellent report, and I guess I want to congratulate you on working your way through this. I mean, it's changing at the province. Sometimes, you know, it's great to congratulate the province. Sometimes I wonder if they know what they're doing, though, you know, the way they're going about certain things. So I think that kudos to you and all of your group there for actually weeding through and trying to find ways and being innovative in it, and I think you've done an excellent job.
Okay, Mayor Morrison.
I say kudos also. I think it's wonderful. I know when we sat down ages ago with the other things that you amalgamated and brought together, so was fantastic, and I think the way excuse me, you're going to move forward on this will be terrific for the residents of Peel. I'm curious, I had a lady get in touch with me who will get a subsidy and therefore could have that flexibility of going into an apartment, but the apartment people refused her because she would be on a subsidy. Is there some way that we can work with people who own these buildings to realize that this is a good thing, not a bad thing?
Yes, that's really unfortunate. You know, the best answer is that we don't involve them in the first place. And we actually have, I didn't talk about it, but we have an alternative delivery model wherein we're using a new methodology through the Ministry of Finance. And we are getting housing allowances through the Ministry of Finance to people directly into their bank accounts.
Perfect.
So the landlord doesn't actually need to know that you're receiving a subsidy.
Perfect.
And it's working extremely well. The Ministry of Finance actually does verification of the income through Canada Revenue Agency.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something we're testing, and it has the possibility to have application for other programs. So we're looking at it, and from my perspective, rather than spending time talking about the value of having people on social housing or on a subsidy in their buildings, I don't know why they really need to know in the first place.
Well, I totally agree with you, so I'm glad to hear that they're looking at another way of doing it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Atarak?
Yes, as further to the Mayor Morrison's point, is there anything in the Ontario Human Rights Code that prohibits discrimination based on financial status?
Yes, there is. And in fact, we're reporting in the near future on some recent changes to human rights related to housing. So yes, you raise a good point.
I would think that landlord could be charged.
I think that they have an ability, and I stand corrected, to make sure that the families can afford to pay the rent. But discrimination on the basis of social assistance, I think.
Well, if you have a subsidy, that makes you more able to pay.
Absolutely.
Okay, that concludes my list. So could I have a motion to receive the presentation, Councillor Palashi and Sato? All those in favor? Carried. Also, we have 10.1 to, I think it's 10.8 or 10.11. Would someone like to move the report then? Okay, McFadden and Miles. Although, any other questions? If not, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Okay, next we're going to have Dr. Mo would come down.
We're going to do that in 9.2. Next is Public Works.
That's it here, the item relating to.
That was under approval of agenda.
Oh, okay.
We've moved
All right.
down to Public Works.
Oh, okay. All right. Clerk says we changed that. Okay, we're going to go to Public Works then, and Councillor Thompson.
He's stepped away from
Oh, Councillor Starr.
As he's allowed me to do this huge agenda here this morning. The first one is the professional engineering services in wards 4 and 5. Are there any questions, comments? Moved by Councillor Dale, seconded by Councillor Crombie. All in favor? The second item is another contract. And are there any questions, comments? Moved by Councillor Tovey, seconded by Councillor Palashi. All in favor? Carried. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Yeah, you moved communications number 8 and 8.1. Okay.
Oh, move to seat.
All right. All those in favor? Carried. Moving on then to health. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item is a report for information on the Peel Cancer Screening Study. It's been moved by Mayor Morrison, seconded by Councillor Anika. Seeing no questions, all those in favor? Carried. And the next item is a presentation by Dr. Mowat on the recent measles outbreak.
Good morning, Chair Kolb and members of Council. I have with me today Dr. Eileen De Villa, our Associate Medical Officer of Health. And I know there has been some interest in the topic of measles as a result of coverage in the media, and we have had in the Greater Toronto area recently and still continuing an unusual number of cases of this disease, and we wanted to update you on the outbreak and on our response. And I know that sometimes people are a little puzzled because if you go back a few generations, measles was extremely common and was accepted as a regular part of life, and sometimes we wonder, well, why are we making such a fuss about measles these days? Well, the complete picture is that measles always was a significant cause of ill health and indeed death. And it wasn't until the advent of the vaccine that we were able to do much about that. And since the vaccine, of course, our expectations for the effect of measles on the life, particularly of small children, have changed. In areas of the world where the measles vaccine is unavailable, measles is still extremely common, and in 2012, 122,000 people worldwide died from measles. Now, most of those would be children who are malnourished in the third world. But nevertheless, across the world, there are numerous cases of measles resulting in death. And in this recent outbreak, there have been 23 deaths in the Philippines, for example. So we've been free of what we call endemic measles, that is, measles that's always there, since 1998 as a result of the introduction of the vaccine. There is a small typo. We've said that 27 cases of measles in Canada from 2009 to 2012. That should read in Ontario. But you can see before the vaccine, we had about 300,000 cases a year in Canada. Now we're down to like 10. So that's the change in expectations. And of course, we no longer get those complications like pneumonia and meningitis from measles cases. Those cases that we get now are nearly always as a result of the introduction from the disease by people who have traveled abroad. And then when it comes to this country, those who are inadequately immunized are at risk for catching the disease. And as we said, we've had that recent outbreak. There have been 12 cases from January to April of this year. Measles is just about the most contagious disease there is. So if a case, for example, goes to an emergency room in a hospital and they're there for an hour, every susceptible person who was in that emergency room for that hour and probably for at least a couple of hours afterwards would catch the measles. It's very, very infectious indeed. You need 2 doses of the vaccine, 1 dose, partial immunity, no doses, no immunity. Those who were born before 1970 will be immune. Okay, so I'm going to move on. This is a picture of measles, and I guess those of us who are older would remember seeing this in the past. So those are the symptoms we've listed there. The fever, obviously the rash starts in the face and moves down the body. Sore eyes, characteristic lesions inside the mouth. Having said that, the fact is measles is now a rare disease, and it is very difficult for doctors to diagnose measles because there are so many other rashes that it could be when the case presents. So it is a problem in control because it is so difficult to diagnose. There are blood tests. They don't always give a totally clear picture. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Davila at this point.
So just to take you quickly through the rest of the presentation, as Dr. Mowat mentioned, for those born in the year 1970 or thereafter, 2 doses of measles vaccine is recommended in order to get full protection against measles. People born before 1970 are considered immune to measles. And in the current schedule, children generally get measles as part of the routine publicly funded schedule in Ontario. The first dose given at around a year of age and the second dose at 4 to 6 years of age. Thankfully, again, with the support of Council, we have been able to review all our student immunization records successfully, and our current vaccination rate amongst students in Peel schools is at about 96%. So this helps to give us this concept of herd immunity, whereby a large proportion of our population is immune to measles and therefore confers some protection for the rest of the community, particularly those who, for medical reasons, cannot take the measles vaccine. There are some people who are at increased risk of measles, again, given the information that Dr. Mowat has presented, particularly post-secondary students, travelers to parts of the world where measles continues to be endemic, and certainly healthcare workers as well. So in respect of this current situation, on March 29th, we received word from colleagues at neighboring jurisdictions that they had had a case, or they were following up a case of infectious measles, and they were advised in the course of their investigation that that individual had been in a Mississauga site during the infectious period. That began our work at Peel Public Health. We began a notification process such that people who were at that site and therefore may have been exposed to measles were made aware of the circumstance and what they could do to manage the risk. On April the 4th, we received confirmation from a healthcare provider within our jurisdiction of an actual case of measles in a Brampton infant. That individual had returned with their family from a measles endemic country, and unfortunately, in association with that particular case, there were several exposure sites identified in Peel, which were the subject of a series of news releases which we issued. This resulted in more than 600 potential contacts requiring notification. So what have we been doing? As I've indicated, we've engaged in public notification. We've released several news releases with respect to exposure settings, including the Brampton Civic Hospital and an international flight. You may have seen some of the coverage through the mass media. We've also been engaging in contact with those individuals who we were able to identify as having been exposed at these various sites in order to prevent further transmission. Again, depending on when we hear about the case and when we're able to contact individuals, there are certain post-exposure prophylaxis or protection measures that can be taken. In some cases, vaccine can be given. In some cases, immune globulin can be given. However, at a certain point, if we are not able to provide notification within an extremely timely fashion, we are then left with telling people to please check your immunization records and determine whether or not you're immune, and also to watch oneself for signs and symptoms of measles so as to limit transmission to the next generation of people. In terms of our trying to provide service to our public in respect of this situation, we worked over the last weekend, and we made sure to have extended hours for contact notification as of April 8th. So we've been working straight through from 8:30 to 8 p.m. in order to make sure that we're available and accessible to those who need to contact us. And we have enlisted assistance from the various divisions across Peel Public Health in order to undertake this fairly sizable notification procedure. So I think that's it, and happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. I don't see any questions on the board at all. Would someone like to move receipt of the presentation?
You guys are doing a great job.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Good to jump on it right away.
I'm sorry. Councillor Crombie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question, actually. Can we reflect on overall immunization rates? Are they decreasing? Are people leery of immunizing their children? You talked about potential health risks, that some people cannot take a vaccine, right, but are parents not immunizing their children? Or are they doing so at a lower rate than in the past?
That has never been a big issue in the region of Peel. I remember being asked that question a few years ago and was able to report that, in fact, we, for example, in the schools where the Immunization of School Pupils Act applies, and you have to be immunized unless you can give us a declaration of a conscientious objection or a medical exemption. In fact, the number of such exemptions is extremely low, and I don't believe we've detected any change in that. However, that's not the case everywhere. There are certainly patches in Ontario where there are a large number of people with a religious objection, and they have been subject to repeated outbreaks of disease, measles, polio. So it depends where you are geographically. And I think that the situation in Peel is we have a number of people who are recent immigrants from parts of the world where they see children in hospital and children dying as a result of these infectious diseases. So the benefits of the vaccine are very real to them.
Is it religious or cultural, and can we do anything through education to inform parents that this is really necessary?
We continue to inform parents of that. As you've seen, we have a 96% coverage for measles, and that's very, very good indeed. So we'll obviously continue to enforce the Immunization of School Pupils Act, and we'll continue to speak publicly about the benefits of all of the vaccines that we have to offer. You want to add, Eileen?
Yeah, I think the other thing, of course, is that we support primary care providers and pediatricians in delivering that message. And the current science suggests that parents are most receptive to hearing messages around vaccine from people, healthcare providers, with whom they have particular and established relationships. So we work with our primary care providers, family physicians, and pediatricians in the community to make sure that they have the necessary information to support those conversations with their patients.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Fonseca?
Just to follow up on that, I just wanted to commend Peel and Peel Public Health and working with the school boards. My kids are in grade 2. There was a session done at the school. I received a package on immunization update. It's in multiple languages. There's a phone number you can call if you have specific questions, and there's a frequently asked questions sheet. It's very informative, easy to read, easy to understand. It's excellent. So whatever is, I don't know if it's not just for measles, obviously, it's for all immunization, but it's working very well. And I know parents within at least my kids' school and also where my niece goes, it's an excellent program from an education and an awareness standpoint. So it's working very well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. It's been moved by Councillor Palashi, seconded by Councillor McFadden. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
It's time to have the 1-minute break, so I'm going to ask you all to stand up and dance to the music. We're going to move on to management. Councillor Whitehead. Item
Thank you,
11.1.
Mr. Chairman. Item 1, the encroachment agreement on Regional Road 1. There's a motion attached to that. I have a mover for the motion, John Sanderson. Councillor Starr is the seconder. All those in favor, that carries. Item 2 is the 2014 final levy bylaw. There's a motion attached to that. Councillor Fonseca. And on this side, anybody listening on this side? Seconder? Councillor Sato. Item 3, the 2014 tax capping policy.
Didn't take a vote in the last one.
Okay, all in favor of 2, that carries. Councillor Patrick.
For the Commissioner Trim, sort of as a final going away present, I wondered, we started this in 1998. It's sort of a catch-up. Is it going to ever end?
But we're not talking about the tax capping right now, is that your question?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's improving every year, but it's very slow. For instance, right now, less than 1% actually receive capping protection. It's
Okay.
down, it's 0.9 of 1%. It's down from 1% last year. So there's been 0.1% of an improvement.
These are still older properties?
Yes.
And it'll go out into infinity, I guess.
Well, like I said, it gets smaller every year, the number that are getting capping protection.
Thank you.
You're moving the report, Councillor Patrick?
Yes.
And the seconder on this side, Councillor Crombie. All those in favor? That carries. Next item is the approach to developing the 2015 budget. Item 4, there's a motion attached to that, so we have some direction as we go into the fall. A mover of the recommendation,
Do you want to speak to that?
Councillor Pelletier, and on this side, Councillor Miles. Discussion, Mayor Morrison.
Okay, thank you. I noticed the reductions that are required, but as we pointed out last year with the Ontario Provincial Police, we had a 5-year contract, and our council agreed on the increases to our contract and agreed on the increase of officers, because we hadn't increased any officers for a number of years. So in that contract, we decided that we would bring more officers on and another sergeant on, and that budget would be spread over 5 years to lessen the impact over the 5-year. And this is part of it. So if you reduce 2.4% in that budget when our council thought it was fine, then that means we have to we'll have to let some officers go and not have the quality, I guess I would say, of policing in Caledon that we as a municipality want. So I'm putting that out there. I'm letting you know that Caledon Council is happy with what we've done and the way we've phased it in. And so I'm putting that out there. Thank you.
Councillor Sato.
Thank you. I guess I'd like some clarification because I wasn't really sure on what we are giving direction as far as the net levy increase achievement goal is. I think if I'm reading it correctly on page 3, it's the first paragraph, staff propose to achieve an increase, and then we talk about a net expenditure increase between 1% to 3%. The next report speaks about and I think you have to look at both together because there's information in the second report, in report 5, that talks about the 1.8%, which is currently estimated inflation, and our forecasted increase is 2.1 and 2.2, which is higher than that. So I'm not really sure what you are suggesting we ask you to achieve from the second report, my feeling would be the inflation rate is 1.8. That's what we should be directing staff to achieve. But I don't think those numbers are in the report that we're dealing with right now. In other words, I'm confused at this point. Please clarify.
Norma?
Okay. Through you to the counselor. If you look at page 75, the chart on page 75.
Turn it up a bit.
Okay. Yes.
If you look at that, and you can see on the 2015 forecast.
Right.
So that was developed at the time the 2014 budget was put
Right.
together. We were looking at a 2.9% tax levy increase.
Okay.
What we're proposing now, and you can see in the next column, the year-over-year increase in the budget for each of the programs.
Right.
So you can see they vary from anywhere from 1.2% up to 5.4%. What we're suggesting is that each area go back and look at what would be the implications of reducing that increase from whatever that second column is to a 3% increase. And if that happened across the board, we would go from a 2.9% net levy increase to a 1.6%, which is more in line with inflation, which is
Okay.
running at 1.8 to 2%.
Okay, now I get it. Thank you. I was just a little confused on those numbers because it actually wasn't in the I know the recommendation says as in the report. I would suggest that, Mr. Chairman, because the media tend to get this quite muddled, and they're going to look at the largest numbers they can possibly find, that perhaps in the recommendation we are very explicit and that we give direction for a net levy, for the net levy increase of 1.6. And then that would be very specific direction to staff that that is the target, which is below the 1.8 projected inflation. Does that make sense, David?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, to be explicit in the recommendation, I think is a very good idea. What I would recommend, though, is that staff report back on the implications of
Right.
attempting to achieve a 1.6% tax levy increase, because there are some areas, and Mayor Morrison's mentioned one, where council may wish to make a decision at the end when they have all the information different from the 1.6. What we're looking for today is really a target to work towards with the agencies, and then we'll report back on the implications of being able to meet that.
I think, though, when we asked, in the past when we've asked, report back on the implications, we've done it with police. I recall many years ago with a previous police chief, we asked to report back on reductions, and I think Councillor Mullen was on the Police Services Board at the time. And that chief came forward and said, well, yes, I can reduce it, and I'm going to cut the police in the school. I'm going to cut all of the crime prevention. And basically, he came forward and said, I can do it, and cut out everything that was important to us on council and to our citizens. So I would much prefer to say, this is your target. Not come back and tell us, I mean, you're going to come back and tell us the implications anyway. But I would much prefer to be very explicit and say, this is the target, 1.6. And you figure out how to achieve it. We still will get some of the agencies or departments coming back and saying, we have a problem with this and this is why. And then I think we can look at that. And if it's valid, we can deal with it. But I really do not want to say, come back, especially to the external agencies, and tell us what the implications are, because we know darn well the implications are going to be the absolute worst things that they can bring forward. And we will sit here and say, oh, we don't want to lose that. So let's give them a target and go from there. With regard to the police, the Caledon situation with the police, only the Caledon taxpayers pay for the OPP. And I think at that time, the councillors from Caledon, you will have a decision. If you want to deal with a higher increase from, or a higher levy from the OPP, then that's going to be a decision of the Caledon councillors. Yeah, so you've already made that, but that does not impact us saying 1.6%. So I would suggest an amendment to the recommendation that that staff develop a 2015 budget based on the target tax levy increase for 2015 of 1.6%. That would be
Would you see that as a friendly amendment, changing the motion, or would you?
I think it's a very friendly amendment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and it is after assessment. Our forecast of assessment
Yeah.
growth is built into that of 1.4%.
Yeah, I'm looking at an end.
Are we okay with
Okay,
that?
the words have been changed on your screen.
Oh, there, okay.
Is the mover and seconder still?
No, sorry, I'm sorry. No, I don't want it to say on any implications associated. Because then again, we're asking them, they're going to report back anyway. So let's not give the opening for them to find the absolute worst impact programs. I would prefer to have at the top on the target of 1.6% net levy increase. And then we're asking everyone to just report back on their budget. And they're going to give us the implications when they report back. I think it's up to them to work towards that goal on their budget. And if they have issues with it, then they will report back when they come to council, when they bring their budget. So I would take out the reporting back on implications. You may even be able to remove that in total.
So the third paragraph needs change too then?
You could possibly even remove it. I'm not sure we need it.
You want them to report?
Well, they're going to report back. They always report back anyway. Do we need it in the recommendation? I don't know. I mean, I'm fine to leave it in without the implications part of it. I just think we have to give a very clear message at this point what we want them to do. And then we'll hear from them at budget time. Or if they want to come before budget time, that's fine. I would move that, Mr. Chair.
Well, the third paragraph deals with the budgets that are beyond our control, so that's probably still worded right, isn't it?
No.
No?
No.
How do you think it should be worded?
Mr. Chairman,
I don't think we need it at all.
may I suggest a wording that might achieve your objective? If you were to replace reporting back on any implications associated with, and say instead, report back on how they propose to achieve
That's
the
good.
reduced
I like
target.
that. I would suggest that's good wording. Yeah. Why don't we just say how they can achieve this target?
Can I just?
No, you don't want the word reduction.
No, just say how they can achieve the target.
Yeah.
Right?
Chair Cole would like to speak.
I think
Maybe we get the wording in right.
Where do they got the hard?
Has anybody got any whiteout?
Yeah. From the screen.
Yeah, pushing the delete button is good.
Yeah. Or keep highlighting.
It's working here.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just one of the questions that staff are going to ask everybody is, does the 1.6 include assessment growth for 2014? And we were I think, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I understood when we were talking about it, we were hoping, we don't know what that might be, but let's say it's 1.5% or something like that. Then instead of creating a whole lot of extra work for them, we were hoping that with assessment growth that everybody came in so we could have a regional budget at 1.6.
Right.
So that's what just so everybody understands.
Yeah.
And that there's no misunderstanding about that. There will be some assessment growth, hopefully.
Yeah.
And they'll have that to work with within their budget and still try to come in. So as long as that's clear, that's all.
Okay, so you got a draft wording now. I'll move to the next speaker, Councillor Starr.
Yeah, I think so. The suggestions are a good one, but I think the telling chart is the one that's on 11.4.2. And my concern basically is that we talk about inflation and then we put in a number that we say it's 1.6. I think the next chart or matrix that we need is that if we go to that number, or say it's 1.6 or 2% or whatever, what is the matrix or chart as associated with the municipalities? What's that going to do overall? And I think that's the really important one, because when we have to sell this to the community, it's not what happens at the region, it's not what happens at the city, although the city is sometimes saying, yes, taxes are going 6 or 8%, that didn't happen. And I really think that that's what we have to do, because I know that Madam Mayor went through that several times with the Mississauga News and just didn't understand it.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, we do work very closely with the cities with the perspective that there is only one property taxpayer. And you'll recall in each year for the last few years in our budget presentations, we present what the proposed regional target or a levy increase, and then we give you a range of what the bottom line impact will be depending on what the decisions are at the local municipalities. Because we know approximately what the percentage of the overall tax, property tax, the region makes up. And then we can make some assumptions about how much room that, if you like, that gives the local municipalities to make decisions within. So we will be reporting back on that as part of all of this.
Because I really think that the chart, or whatever you want to, the matrix you want to call it, should throw in some variables so that you know what could happen. I mean, I take a look at a couple of these, say Credit Valley Conservation, and a number of us sit on that board. We've seen some of the numbers that they want for the next 3 or 4 or 5 years. It's not 7% or 8%. Some of the numbers are a lot higher for the next 5 or 6 years. I mean, 7, 8, 7, 10. That's not sustainable. And I just don't know how we're going to do this with the forecast and the increases that we're looking at on on a yearly basis. And I almost think that you almost have to go take a look at a theoretical 2 or 3 and get the message across, frankly, that this is not going to work. I mean, we're in for a tough 4 years, by the way, 3-4 years coming down the road, seeing some of the budgets that, or at least the numbers that we're seeing. And when I see the Peel Regional Police, and I see some of the others that are, twice inflation, 3 times inflation. I know what's going to happen. Well, they're going to cut out the favorite programs, in the schools and this and that, and I just think that we need to have a chart with probably more theoretical numbers of some sort. And I know you've done that before, and say, here's where we are, and so that we can at least start to plan and not give hope. For instance, I know that we've talked about the Credit Valley Conservation, and certainly Councillor Tovey, and there's a couple of others up sit on the board there. Numbers won't work. I don't know where we're going to get 10% per year. It's the same taxpayer. So anyway, I leave that, and if we can incorporate that somehow as direction, I'd appreciate that.
We will do that, Mr. Chair, and that's why for all the reasons that you've stated, that's why we're starting this discussion in April.
Good.
Not in November.
Thank you.
Councillor Patrick?
Yes, further to Councilor Mayor Morrison's comments, I really believe that that the third paragraph has to remove any reference to the Ontario Provincial Police because we have a signed agreement and it is moot. So if I don't think anybody should object to it. We have a contract and we have to pay, Caledon has to pay for what we've agreed to. And it won't be within that 1.6. We know that.
Okay.
So if we could remove that, not the regional police. Thank you.
Member Morrison?
Further to Councillor Paterak's request, I think most of you know that AMO has had 2 task forces now on policing, mostly to do with the OPP and the costs of OPP policing. I was on a conference call yesterday with AMO and different mayors from around Ontario who have OPP policing, talking about where it's going and what we need to continue to look at, and the recommendations that they're going to be bringing, that AMO is going to bring down with regards to OPP policing, recommendations to the province, because of course the province has a major part of it. I can, are you talking or am I talking? No? Okay. Since there will be a new formula, and we thought it would have been in place by now, and it's not, and it's probably months away before it will be, we don't even know what the cost of policing will be in Caledon once this new formula comes in, because what they're going to do is they're going to cancel all the contracts and bring a new contract forward. So I would say right at the moment, I agree with Councillor Paterak, take Ontario Provincial Police out of this. We do have a contract that's in place right now. We as a council have agreed to the cost, or the policing cost, and probably next year you'll be dealing with new policing costs, although Caledon was sort of higher than what they're calling the average, so we probably will see it not go any higher. If anything, we might even see a reduction in our policing costs, which will be a good thing for our taxpayers. So I would say please, right at this moment, I agree with Councillor Paterak, OPP should be out of that. Thank you.
Mayor McCallion?
So I was wondering if David could tell us what's in the 215 budget for the uploading that will be coming from the provincial government. How much?
$4 to $5 million.
Yeah, that's how much on the levy? It would represent
about 0.5%.
0.5%. Because with an election coming, which everybody expects, we have certainly no assurance from the one party as to whether or not they will honor the phasing out of the uploading. So that could be a question mark in the 215 budget, depending on who's elected, if there is an election this year provincially. We couldn't, the large urban mayors could not get an assurance from Mr. Hudak that he would continue the program. Just to warn you.
Chair Cole?
Well, just on that one point, we don't have any assurance that we'll even get the prisoner side of it that they were doing, you know, the transportation side after the end of their budget, which is in March. So we haven't heard yet, or we haven't got any insurance that we're going to get to 2018, or even that we're going to get the end of 2014. But just the one thing on this policing, what's really are driving these policing budgets, and you know, it's hard to blame and which ones have been the fault of the percentage of increase in salaries that have been negotiated. But I think what very I mean, the OPP got almost 11 point something, I think it is, in the last 3 years on their increase, which is the 8% that their salary's going to go up. So it's all in salaries, and we don't have a collective agreement at the Region Appeal after the end of this year, and certainly the association has not been willing to come to the table to even talk about salaries for the police in 2014. So that's the big concern. I gave these numbers we had a meeting just a week or two ago, and I gave these numbers to our chief and staff of what the expectation is going to be. So they already know, but it's the collective agreement that is the issue. I think for most of us, and Toronto, I believe, has settled, and I think York has settled, and they didn't settle at 1.5 or 1.5% of what we might be talking about here as inflations, and that's where the problems are gonna stick.
Thank you. Councillor Mullen?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess on the policing issue, I mean, there's been a lot of discussion across the GTA and Ontario with regards to policing cost, and I guess the question I asked last year at budget is, how are the police costs going to be sustainable over time? I understand the collective agreements are a huge driving force in terms of the police costs, but if you take a look at the chart, I guess the problem I'm having is you take a look at probably one of the largest portion of our budget, which is police, and you take a look at the reduction required, and then you compare it to with regards to the conservation authorities, which have much lower budget, and yet the reduction is much higher. I mean, somehow I believe that in order to move forward with policing, there's got to be a way that we can reduce those budgets in a better way, so that there is a fairness, number one, and also that over time there's some sustainability. Because I don't know what the end result's going to be, but that reduction overall, in my view, is very small in comparison to what is being asked for of the other external agencies. So I do have a concern, and I know there's been a lot of discussion, as I say, across Ontario about sustainability of policing. But that is a huge amount that is on the regional tax bill. And if you take a look at the chart, it just seems to me totally out of whack. Correct me if I'm wrong, the last couple of years, the police have come in with a surplus. I believe last year it was a little, and I may be wrong, a little over $1 million. I guess the only point I'm trying to make is that I think that the time has come that they need to sort of step up in a larger way, so that chart is a little bit, I think, more balanced at the end of the day. So I do have some concerns with the numbers.
Councillor Dale.
Oops. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't disagree with what Councillor Mullen's saying, but the challenge we have on the Police Services Board is the fact that, and it's what the Chair was alluding to, is that over 93% of the police budget alone is salaries and benefits. So when you look at the amount of room the board has to reduce the budget, so if you're looking at comparing it to any other department within the Region Appeal, there's not another section of the Region Appeal that has a 93.3%, I think it is, that are salaries and benefits. So that's one of the challenges we're faced with. But notwithstanding that, certainly the board is looking closely at efficiencies and where we can reduce the budget to try to come in with as close as we can to this target. But I just want to remind Council that it's a much greater challenge, I think, for the Police Services Board to reduce that budget than it is looking at the other departments within the Region Appeal with respect. It reminds me of the school board, where I think the school board is close to 90% in salaries and benefits as well. But certainly we're looking at efficiencies, and we brought forward efficiencies last year through the budget process. And the chair is quite correct too. The contract ends this year, 2014, so we're hoping to get into negotiations with respect to salaries. But again, we're faced with the challenge of comparisons to other police services boards that have already negotiated their contracts, and if you go to arbitration, more often than not, the police win.
Councillor Sparvieri.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe last year the province invoked a wage freeze for provincial employees. Does the staff know whether that's still in effect or whether that was just a one-year freeze, or was it more of a longer-term freeze? Would anybody know?
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'm not aware of a wage freeze last year. There were wage freezes a number of years ago. I can look into that and get information for you.
Yeah, if you can't, because if the province, whether it was a year or 2 years ago, but I remember reading about it, and if the province has gone that route, and there's no reason why they couldn't support municipalities, because we know that the rest of the employees at the region are fairly sensible, and they're happy with the 1 or 1.5% increase. But we have the fire department at the city and the police here at the region that usually always don't want to settle for those kind of raises, and they want, of course, 5, 6, 7, now 8%. I'm hearing. And that's not sustainable. We have to find a way to curtail those departments from these large increases. And if it means, asking the province, say, you got to help us to deal with this, because we just can't handle these kind of increases. And and there's people out there they're ready to hit the streets with revolt because of the taxes that we've been handing to them every year, so I think we have to really look for a way to restrict those departments from such large increases. And if you can find out, Mr. Swart, if the province did invoke the freeze and if they still are in effect, or whether we can ask them to help us out. And
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we can report back on this issue. The issue is much larger than a provincial imposed wage freeze on its non-bargaining staff. The province's AMO has been actively involved for a number of years with municipalities, trying to work with the province to change the salary arbitration system, especially its impacts on the emergency services workers. And so I can bring you a report back on wage increases in the general population with public service, with the emergency services group, and the work that has been done over the last number of years to try and change that arbitration system. Because I believe AMO's position has been that it's really the arbitration system that is not working as it should. It's not really it's supposed to replicate freely bargained collective agreements, and it's not doing that. So we can report back on that entire initiative, which is bigger than just that. And simply said, municipalities have been working with the province, but we haven't yet been able to affect the kind of changes that you've been talking about that we need.
And through the chair, another perhaps you include in that, I'm getting a lot of people saying to me, the private sector, the wages are pretty well frozen. In some cases, they're actually being reduced for private industries and businesses. And I think it would be good to have a comparison also what the private sector and the public sector, how they've been faring the last few years, whether they're keeping pace together or whether the public sector has been creeping up more so than the private sector. If you can also give us that comparison.
We can include that information in the report, Mr.
Great.
Chairman.
Thank you.
That's fine. We have a staff undertaking then. Mayor McKellan.
Yeah, in regard to the arbitration process, AMO has followed the direction of the Premier, and that is to sit down with the unions to see if we can come to some decision on arbitration. I warned the Premier. I said to her, we will do that, no question about it, but we will accomplish very little, and that's exactly what's happened. There's no consensus at all in regard to arbitration. So as a result, AMO now will decide to proceed. In fact, I guess the government now knows that that was the last resort, was this, that we sit down with the unions. I don't know how far it's going to go, or whether, and with the situation in the province the way it is, I don't know even if we had come to an agreement, who would be in power to pass it is a big question mark. So it's up in the air again. We're going nowhere after debating arbitration for, David, 15 years at least with the province. Obviously, it's going nowhere. Secondly, in regard to the police budget, I think that I'm hoping that police throughout the province will consider looking at how they can look at their budget from hiring non-policemen for many jobs. I think there is a way involving other than policemen to do many of the jobs that I see in the community as you go around. I think that's one way. Yes, salaries is the big part, but I think a police officer doing certain things could be done by a citizen appointee or citizen hiring. I think that's one way that the budget should be looked at in regard to police.
Thank you. You have the revised wording in front of you, Councillor Pleshy and Councillor Miles. You mover and seconder, are you satisfied? Okay, no further speakers, all in favor? And carries. Moving on to the next item, which is the annual update of Peel's financial condition. I was doing my income tax last night, and I can assure you that Peel is in better shape than I am. Mayor McCallion.
It's S1.
I'm on
Annual
11.5.
update on Peel's. Yeah. Again, in this report is to address the impact of the GO Transit liability. What progress has been made on that? That comes up every so often.
Very little progress has been made on it. It's still sitting as a liability on our books. And
Yeah, but what, Mr. Chairman, I directed to the chairman. I think the time has come that we either pay it or get them to cancel it. I think this has been going on for far too many years. So
I couldn't agree with you more.
We should call a halt to it and either pay it or say, sorry, we're not, or getting the province to cancel it. It should not be carried on our books any longer.
For me?
Yeah.
Madam Chair, or Madam Mayor, as you know, there was a resolution that you brought back from GO that we were only going to pay the DCs, and that's what we've been forwarding to it. I just checked with my colleagues, and they're not putting, I don't believe that they're putting money aside for this. We've tried to get the province to write it off to the books, but they have not taken any action to do that. So it is on the books of the GO board or Metro board, I guess, and they're sending bills to everybody, and nobody's going to pay. And just my conversation just a week ago with a couple of the chairs, they have no intention of paying it, and they're saying, well, if the GO board can give free GO to Guelph, for example, then why are we paying for this here in the 905 area?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think there should be a meeting arranged with the Premier and get this written. And
Okay.
It's the province.
Yes, it is.
And I think it's time to call halt.
And
I mean, this could go on and on and on, and the point is that you know, it's a liability. It shouldn't be on the books.
And they're doing, as far as I know, the other municipalities are collecting also some for the GO, that was DCs for the GO, and that's what they're sending in.
Oh.
And that's what we've been doing here at the Region Appeal, I believe. So.
I don't know what to recommend, but I'd like to see it settled.
Okay.
Councillor Mullen?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sorry.
Matter of interest, I just saw the report last night as I went through the mail. I asked our department to look at the per capita debt of 10 to 15, I think 10 to 12 municipalities. And I don't have it with me. I wish I'd brought it to distribute. I think that it's very interesting that only the city of Brampton and the city of Mississauga had no debt per capita in 2012 of all the cities, because the press is making a big do about the fact that Mississauga is going into debt. I think the municipalities would be happy to be in the position that they've had no debt and only going into debt. Our debt in 2013 will be $69 per capita in the city of Mississauga. I don't know what Brampton's, whether they have still zero. Yeah, so there's only 2 municipalities in the entire GTA that have no debt, Brampton and Mississauga in 2012. Thought it would be interesting.
Okay, Councillor Mullen?
The regions are in debt, including the Region Appeal.
Yes.
Give it a shot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With regards to, on page 4, the non-residential tax revenue is between 35% and 45%, indicates that the decline represents decreasing property tax revenue from industrial and commercial properties. Right now, they're saying that it's not a problem, but certainly a pressure in the long-term sustainability. In terms of looking at this particular issue, is the region, and certainly we are at the city, and I'm sure in Caledon and Brampton as well, looking at rezonings of properties from commercial and industrial to residential. That certainly will put things out of whack in the long term in terms of any sustainability, because we rely on the industrial and commercial to keep a balance and again to have the sustainability. So are we watching that very carefully in terms of the region, looking at the various rezonings to change the industrial commercial to residential? When you say it's not an issue right now, it's certainly in the long term will be a problem.
Yeah,
Mr. LeBrecq?
Yeah, if I could, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, as the councillors indicated, the zoning issue is managed at the city level, but we are part of that exercise. We want to defend all employment lands to any extent we can. I think the indicator is really more about the growth that we're seeing isn't per target, and that's coming out of a recession that has an impact. So it's not necessarily conversions, it's just about we're not getting the permits coming through as quickly as people had originally anticipated. So we are monitoring it.
So looking at it, we still have enough commercial and industrial land zoned. It's just a matter that some of it's not being built.
That's right.
Okay,
We all have to, part of the official plan, you have to protect the land budget to meet your places to grow requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we will be reporting back to Council on the issue of targeted DC revenues versus actual. And one of the issues that we're dealing with, as Dan has said, is that the development on the employment lands is not occurring either at the rate or to the amount that we had predicted. So we will be reporting back on that.
If I could interject and say this, the other day Caledon Council was asked to adopt the region's request that we take on another 5,000 jobs in Caledon, which of course we were quite prepared to do. The problem in Caledon according to our Economic Development Department, is we only have 2 years of industrial land left before the 5,000. So we're going to need strong support here at the region in a very short period of time to create more industrial land in Caledon to take on the extra 5,000 jobs. And in recognition from a Peel standpoint is where your inventory, future inventory of your industrial land is north of Mayfield Road. So I just wanted to interject that piece of information that this is a pretty serious issue that's going to have to be dealt with. If we're going to have enough land in Peel for jobs, we're going to have to make sure there's enough land in Caledon for jobs. And the province's crazy formula is a real obstacle for us to deal with, and us meaning Peel as well as Caledon. Councillor Palashi?
Yeah, just on that note, I guess the other is the residential component, and I know that we've been asked to take more residential, so is Mississauga. And Caledon has said I don't think you want any more residential, but there's a case of if you're going to take employment, then you have to take some residential also. Like we're being asked at the City of Brampton, I think it is, to take another 22,000, and we're going, like we don't have room for that other 22,000. We've already gone to our max of what we're going to do in the northwest area, so you have to look at both aspects. I guess what Mayor McCallum, you're absolutely right. We're doing that study. The ongoing study of trying to protect the employment lands, and we have still a lot of employment land available, especially in the southwest area, down on Mississauga Road area. There's a lot of employment that's available in the Orlando area, that type of thing. We have quite a bit there. And our position is that anybody that comes in with employment or industrial, any kind of employment, we will fast track those plans, absolutely. And I think Mississauga does the same. I'm sure Caledon would, and that absolutely takes high priority, and that on what we want to bring into the city. So we're always pushing for that. We've attracted a few. The mayor's mentioned a couple of companies in the recent past that are coming to the city of Brampton, and that's absolutely great from that aspect. So absolutely, we're pushing it. There are some areas, though, when you look at what you've had as employment lands that haven't, and they've been labeled that, and I would say, for example, the Highway 10 Beauvert area, Armstrong Farms, for an example. That farm's been there. That land has been designated as employment for ever since 30 years. I mean, that I've been in politics, and but it's a case of if nobody's going to come there, you're not going to get it. How long do you protect that, or do you try and do some other innovative words where you would have work, live type of developments and that type of thing, where you would kind of try and mix it up in order to have those opportunities, so at least you're going to get some employment. The other big thing is, the province doesn't say, they don't, how would you put, they don't categorize commercial developments and that type of thing as an employment. Our position is a job is a job. I mean, what a shot to say to somebody like, for example, you take Bramalea City Centre that probably employs the whole centre, what, Gail, about 4,000 people maybe, and they're not considered part of the job numbers and that's very unfortunate, because they do contribute absolutely to the base. So that's our position in Brampton, though. Absolutely, we're keeping an eye on that all the time.
Mayor McCallum?
Yeah, the conversion of residential to industrial, thank goodness the province has made it difficult for that to happen. We have to certainly justify it. What I'm concerned about, and I think, is the fact that there's no condition that releasing so much residential land requires the development of industrial or commercial. Some municipalities have done that, and that's the only way you're going to get the commercial and industrial, because otherwise the residential is always built first. We have to finance it, got to finance it with the infrastructure, and the industrial commercial comes when they see fit, or there's opportunities for people to locate there. I agree with Councillor Palashi that I think sometimes we do designate land that is not as attractive as it can be, because, for instance, Siemens, moved from Mississauga over on, Enersource occupies the building. They moved to Oakville. Why in Oakville? They're on Queen Elizabeth. Very obvious. You drive by their beautiful building with their name up there, right? There's a good example. I thought, not that Siemens has moved completely from Mississauga, but their main office moved. And that's the type of thing that we're up against in trying to get commercial. Also the fact that the land prices in Kitchener, Waterloo, and Guelph are much lower than the land prices in Mississauga and Brampton. So we got competition second to none.
Thank you. Mayor Morrison?
Excuse me. I agree that we really need the jobs. And I've said at this council table before that with Caledon being at 18% employment to 82% residential, we need to catch up before we're stifled. And the province doesn't, I don't think they quite get that. But what I'd like to say is I'm listening to Councillor Palashi say that they are supposed to take another 22,000 and you know, they're just totally packed. They don't know what they're going to do. Mississauga is supposed to take more. And so by 2030 or 2041, which are the numbers we're dealing with now, 2031 to 41, everybody, Mississauga and Brampton are totally stretched. So then the next numbers come down, 2030. We all know that the 2031 timeframe is going to disappear in about 5 years, and these numbers float right down. It's just a silly numbers game, and it's planning by numbers, which is ridiculous. But so 2041 to 2051 numbers will come down. And it might be 300,000, 330,000, like this last pile that came. Well, Mississauga can't take any more. Brampton can't take any more. So you expect, I mean, the Region Appeal's got to look at this. So you expect in a 10-year time frame that the town of Caledon will take 300,000 people. I mean, this is getting to be a real joke. And the town of Caledon has never said no to growth. In fact, if you look at our growth graphs, you'll see that we are going up at a sustainable level, a sustainable way. The 146,000 that council approved 2 weeks ago actually takes us higher. Like the sustainability graph that's going up goes along. This new number veers off and goes up higher. So I'm thinking that we had a report about the cost of growth, $4 billion for all the infrastructure for the Region Appeal to be built out. I think it's time that the Region Appeal and the council, and this might be something for the new council to take on, but I think it's time that you look at what sustainable development is, an affordable development in the Region Appeal. How do we develop? How do we do it in an affordable manner? Because I'll tell you, folks, Brampton and Mississauga, while this growth is happening in Caledon and all of these, all the infrastructure is moving forward, you're going to pay on the residential or the industrial, commercial, residential side, the part that is not captured by development charges, and there'll be a good part that isn't. You're going to be paying that. So I think it becomes non-sustainable. So I think we have to look at where we're going with this. I think the Region Appeal has to take a serious look at it, what they can afford and what is sustainable environmentally, fiscally, and with the population. So I put that out to you because it's been something that's bothered me for some time, that we're not looking at that. We're not looking at the whole picture, because you've managed and been able to grow in Mississauga, grow in Brampton, and now all of a sudden, holy mackerel, look at the price to grow in Caledon. So, and there will be growth. Nobody's stopping growth. But I think we have to look at how much we can afford to take and what we can afford. If the province wants to step up and give us $4 billion, or at least the region's share of the $4 billion, and let the developers pay the rest, fine. You know, then we can maybe do it. but I don't see how Caledon will ever be able to take 300,000 people in a 10-year period. I mean, Brampton had a few years where they were at, 11,000 building permits a year, and they just found they couldn't cope with this anymore. You can't keep up with your fire halls, your libraries, your recreation centers, your sports fields. It's just not possible. And then the policing costs on top of it all. So I think that time has come, and if we ignore it and we don't really sit down and have a really good look at it, we're going to be in trouble here in the Region Appeal. Thank you.
Now, I have a little technical issue here. It's called getting on with the agenda. So you're moving the motion then, are you, Councilor Morrison? Mayor Morrison? Can I have a seconder over on this side? Councilor McFadden? All those in favor? That carries. Item 6, you joined in several liability reform, whatever that means. Mayor McCallion?
Worked on this very hard. And again, it's been an issue that has been dealt with for 15 years, and I think it's longer, but anyway, I'll use 15 years. And we again went through a very detailed process and came out with nothing, as usual. Once the lawyers got wind of it, I'll tell you, the opposition to any change was huge. And as a result, we spent a lot of time and accomplished nothing. And now the Attorney General, fortunately, is going to now work with the municipalities. Again, a process we were forced to go through and saying, oh, you got to go through it. So we went. We attained nothing, no consensus at all. So as a result, and this, some municipalities, we've been fortunate, the city of Mississauga, but some municipalities have been hit with some major, as a result of car accidents on the roads. It's just been huge and been allowed to go on for so long. A major drain on the property tax in many municipalities, major drain that could be used for the benefit of the taxpayers in providing services. All these things are coming home to haunt us. And we've been fighting for years and with no success. So I'm very happy that the Attorney General has taken it on and said, the time has come for a change. But it's been a struggle. When you look back and think how many years you have to work on something to get action, it could become discouraging, but we never give up. Unfortunately, we never gave up on this one, and it's going to. Now, we don't know what the success will be, but I think I would be happy to move the recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I have a mover and a seconder on this side, Councillor Pelletier. All those in favor, that carries. Next one is the Public Sector Network, PSN, update and budget. Can I have a mover for the recommendation, Councillor McFadden? Seconder over here, Councillor Thompson. There's no discussion. All those in favor? That carries. Number 8 is the report of the Growth Management Committee. It's for receipt. I have a motion of receipt. Councillor Sanderson, Mayor Morrison. All those in favor? That carries. The next one is 9, the disposal report is here for information. Mover? Councillor Sanderson, seconder Councillor Starr. All those in favor? We've achieved our goal in the Management Committee in that nobody wants to talk to us anymore, so there's no communications. And back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Moving on then to bylaws. I have a bylaw moved by Morrison and Moore that the bylaws listed on Regional Council agenda, being bylaws 31-214 to 33-214 inclusive, be given the required numbers of reading, taken as read, signed by the regional chair, the clerk, and the corporate seal there fixed there too. Are there any questions on the bylaws? Yeah. All those in favor? Carried. We're down to item number 13, which is other business. I have none, unless there is by any member of council. Moving on then to notice of motions, I have none. In camera, the only in camera item we have is the March the 27th, 2014 Regional Council closed session report. A mover by Paleshi and Paderak. Are there any questions? If not, all those in favor, carried. Moving on then to the bylaws relating to the in-camera matters. Would someone like to move and second that? Thompson and Star. Are there any questions? If not, all those in favor, carried. Moving on then to item number 17, which is the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of Regional Council. Would someone like to second and move that? Sanderson and Sato. Giving it a short reading, that bylaw 34-213 to confirm the preceding Regional Council meeting held on April the 10th, 2014. Authorize the signing. All those in favor? Opposed, anybody? That motion's carried. And the motion to adjourn. Okay, Mayor McCallion and McFadden. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much for your cooperation. Lunch is here, and I hope you have a great day and a great weekend.